I'm the first product of Yeg Hustle before we even realized Yeg Hustle needed to be a thing, or it was something that I personally needed while I'm on my entrepreneurial journey. So there was a point about 2.5 years ago where I was living in a insane world of overwhelm and stress, and it was an environment I created myself for a few reasons. I'm ambitious and pursuing a bunch of different things with a bunch of different companies I'm involved with. So Nation Network slash OilersNation.com being an online sports media company, which was a passion project that kind of we kept pushing to and actually becoming a thing. And Oodle Noodle, which is now a 14 store Edmonton and area restaurant chain with now ambitious and scary goals to leave our backyard and start growing across the province in Western Canada. So that's exciting and also presents its new challenges. And then another passion project with Little Brick and the River Valley Company with the mission to build more amenities in Edmonton to create both local, regional, and global tourism. So a lot of these things possess their own stresses and challenges, and sometimes they present them all at the same time. So there was a moment, not a moment, many moments, where I would be coming to work. I know I have a million things to do. I know everything is on fire, and I would turn on my laptop and I wouldn't even know where to begin. And that was causing a lot of issues because I wasn't having focus to be able to kind of isolate things and work on things one thing at a time. I wasn't being present as a leader when having, managing our team and having, one-on-one conversations with our team because my head would be elsewhere. And this was just stuff I was internalizing, and it was getting worse and worse and worse to the point where I thought I had a heart attack, and it ended up being a panic attack. And I realized at that point that I'm not doing things right for my health. And B, I'm obviously not doing things as a leader for my companies, and not having the focus to help kind of drive forward with what we're doing. So I woke up one morning. I'd met April, a few months prior, based on, we got met under the whole connection of I really wanted to chat with her initially about her encounters with Gary Vee, because that's someone I look at as a brand and business expert, but also that led me to just kind of finding out more of what she does. And she's very good at documenting who she is and what she's doing and how and the value she can provide others. And it just kind of resonated with me. One morning I just woke up, I DM'd her on Instagram and I literally just said, I need help, thinking that, she can help me kind of develop tools or at least be an ear for what's going on. And, we had our first session and I just dumped everything on her, explaining everything. The whole world's on fire and just having her listen. And then, just like she said, she just kept asking questions until I found the answers, because I ultimately had the answers. And a lot of it had to do with just facing harsh realities, or just about certain things, or just kind of like being like, okay, well, how do we set up Jay so we can be able to handle all this stuff, and what does that need to look like, and kind of reverse engineer, what does it need from a team perspective, what does it need from a schedule or routine perspective. And she put me to task on kind of searching deeper on what that is and how to get that. So it was that first meeting that led into like regular meetings where we would keep having these discussions, keep talking about what's good and what's still on fire, and keep navigating through all that. But the big thing that it did is, we established a routine for myself that allowed me the time and space to be able to do the things I need to do to benefit our companies, but also kind of fill me up with positivity and energy and reinvigorating the purpose of everything. But it also allowed me to become a better leader and mentor to our team, because now instead of carrying 9,000 things in my brain when I'm having an encounter with a fellow team member, I'm now present, aware, and listening, and actually being of value when I'm having these encounters with our team. So it really opened the door for a lot of things for us with everything we're involved with, and it's something I continually work on, and it's constantly a battle because your mind can veer off and you can feel overwhelmed. But for me, it's been a tool, it's been an outlet. April and I still meet every 2 weeks now, where we're going through all that stuff, and for me, it's been very powerful. It's totally changed the trajectory of where we're going, and give me the focus to help drive that growth, which was most important. So I'm a product of this, and that is kind of how the Yeg Hustle came to be, because April and I had a discussion thinking, like, I can't be the only one. Everyone, there's a lot of talented entrepreneurs in the city that are doing a lot to get their businesses off the ground, and it's not that you're allowing yourself to be overwhelmed. It's just you're taking on so much, you're forcing yourself to be overwhelmed. And we want to be a mechanism, a tool, a support collective to help all these amazing, talented people in Edmonton that are going out on their own or going out as a group, whatever it is, an outlet, a tool, a support system to help keep doing the good things that they're doing, and have them, be an element to give them a better chance of success by, allowing yourself to be more self-aware, and, more focused on what you're doing, through these conversations and tools that we work on together. So, like I said, I'm the main testimonial because I'm a product of all this, and I'm very passionate about it because I know the effect it has had on me. And first things first, being open and sharing vulnerabilities with someone else is actually the first step, and a very powerful tool, and necessary to get to the next level. So I could rant about hours about this. So that's kind of my story. Is there anything I missed there, April?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. So my side of things. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a teacher by trade. So I started my career teaching in special needs preschool. And during that time, I had experienced burnout multiple times. And in an attempt to try and find a way to combat that, mitigate that, I stumbled upon the 6-day summer intensive at the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley in California. So I went down there for a conference, and that is where I stumbled upon mindfulness and meditation. And my teachers then, and current teachers now, Chris and Megan, led us through a guided meditation. And I came out of it and I was just like, why the heck is this not taught more? And why am I only finding out about this now? So I came home and signed up with them. They had a company called Mindful Schools where I did a year-long intensive on learning how to teach mindfulness to others. And in the process, developed my own mindfulness and meditation practice in a formal way, including attending multiple silent retreats. From there, I just started developing my practice, and I won the opportunity to go to New York to pitch to Gary Vaynerchuk. So I took that opportunity, obviously, and in July of 2017, I traveled to New York and pitched to Gary about the importance of mindfulness in sports, because that's also one of the places where I learned about mindfulness. I was a high-level rugby player for a very long time, and when I played varsity, we had a sports psychologist that led us through grounding practices. At the time, I didn't realize it was meditation, but it truly was. When I went to meet Gary, the cooler part of that, I mean, Gary's as cool as you think he is, but I met Claude Silver, who's his chief heart officer, and she gave me an hour of her time and agreed to be a mentor and friend of mine. And I truly believe that every company should have some form of chief heart officer. And that's how I saw myself coming home, where she suggested that I become a coach and a mentor to others around mindfulness. So I came home and started my business of just offering professional services around meditation and mindfulness to others, and started individually coaching people. Again, that's shortly after that, that's when I met Jay, and he became a client of mine. And after a certain amount of time, I saw in Jay the capacity to start teaching his story to others. Our story is the most powerful thing that we have. And it takes vulnerability to be willing to share that. Not everybody is in that position. but I believed that Jay was. And so I approached him with, how about we do this together and we provide services for people where they can find support around well-being in their business. And he said yes without a question. So we started that shortly thereafter and have started providing group coaching and individual coaching to businesses. And that's what leads us here today. And as I stated it a bit in the beginning, that my role here is simply to provide the mindfulness and meditation direct support. And that often just comes in the place of inquiry. I ask certain questions that causes the client to think in different ways that maybe they're not used to, and discover in themselves the answer that was always there to begin with, that can often be hidden under layers of conditioning and stress and those types of things. I'm also a trauma-informed practitioner. So during my time being an educator, I received training through the Child Trauma Academy out of Texas. And I think that that's actually one of the most important things that I bring to the table, is recognizing what stress does to the brain and the body. And we hear a lot about it from, these biohackers and such, but a lot of that is difficult to implement unless you have somebody who can guide you along with it and figure out what's right for you. And so that's something that we've directly done with Jay. And then we develop individualized programs for those who come to us for help. So that's what we're here for today. That's a little intro as to who we are and what we provide, and that we're here as resources for you. But for the rest of the time here today, we thought that we could open up the floor to questions and or comments from you as the collective, because those of you in the room are actually the ones that hold the wisdom. And not often are we placed into a situation where we are asked to be vulnerable and share. And that's really our passion for Jay and I, is giving people the opportunity to recognize that we all go through challenges as human, and the challenges are typically the same. They just dress up differently, and how we might be able to combat those and share our stress might lead us to greater well-being, and therefore greater results in our business. So that's who we are and what we do. So I guess we can open it up to any questions, and this usually takes a few moments for people to get brave enough to either post in the chat, or maybe they can just unmute themselves. Cecile, I don't know how we want to kind of navigate that piece, but we are here for you and ready and willing to answer questions or take comments.
Absolutely. So if you don't feel comfortable to speaking up, just please put it in the chat and then I'll read it out. If you do feel comfortable, please show your face and ask away. Or if you don't want to show your face, don't. But it's always nice to see people's faces and to feel that human component. Tired of not seeing smiles, so love to see a smile. And
I also know that we have a couple people in the chat who are already either known to us or what have you. So feel free to say hi as well. You might be able to break the ice for someone else that's feeling a little bit more shy to speak up. And you can honestly ask us anything. Jay and I have run the gamut of questions because everything is connected. So what you think might not necessarily be a business question probably is, because none of us are able to fully leave our lives at home when we enter the office. So we're definitely here to help you reflect on anything that you might bring to the table. So. And now here comes the silence that Jay and I are very used to during this part.
I'll jump in.
Sure.
So, I mean, I've got a podcast, Back in Business, that Joel Begalnik and I run that touches on like health and wellness in entrepreneurship, and really talking about the failure and how do you rise after that fall. Because, as Jay, you mentioned, like you've got all these things and all these balls juggling and you feel like you're dropping them all. And so one of the challenges that I've had is really just how do you find people and create space where they're comfortable to even jumping in and talking about things, right? I mean, Jay, you kind of had that serendipitous moment of, chatting with and sending the DM to April. What kind of things promote that sort of moment of courage for others, and how can we help as a community build that out or give that space for people?
Well, for me, I think I waited too long. I let it consume me to a point where it was, a risk to my health. So And that was for me being having bravado and not being like, well, you can't, you like not willing to admit that I was actually not well or, in trouble, and not, the bravado of just like, well, I'll fix it. I'll just internalize it. I won't share with anyone and show weakness. I'll just persevere and push through that. Like to me, it took too long. And I want to try to be the poster boy in this instance, to be like, it's important to, if you're feeling this early, to share early, because you can help and get things back on course much quicker, and not create the circumstance that I did. I let it happen because I wasn't willing to share. So for me, yes, it was serendipitous that I met with April, but the trigger for me was having a panic attack and being like, I actually need to, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I think what we're doing is good, but I'm clearly allowing it to consume me like this, and I need to work on me so I can be better. So, yeah, that would be my retort.
A couple questions in the chat. So we have one from Olivia, and she's starting a social media managing business. And she's wondering, what's the hardest part of starting your business, so that she can be a little bit prepared?
Being told no. You're starting out, and good for you. I'm very happy that you're doing that. And just, you're going to be faced with being told no a lot. And you know what? If you truly believe in what you're doing, then being told no should be something that lights a fire. I'm sorry, I'm going to swear, under your ass, and help you push through to chase that yes. But just be prepared to be told no and be cool with that. And it's not because you're not doing anything wrong. That's just the function of just starting out and being an unknown quantity when you're starting out from scratch, and that's totally okay. The amount of no's I've been told is probably in the thousands. So, and now we can get to yeses a little bit faster, but we still face a lot of no's, and no's should be fuel.
A question that I would add to that is why? Why do you want to start a company to begin with? And why are you choosing social media? Oftentimes, when we ask entrepreneurs why they started in business, most often it's a question around control. I want to have control over my schedule. I want to have control over what I do every day. And Jay will be the first to tell you that that's actually a bit of a fallacy, that you answer to way more people when you were in entrepreneurship than if you were to work for someone else, because you end up working for every single one of your employees and your clients on a daily basis. So when it comes to the awareness piece of why you are choosing to do what you do and how to get ready, there's also a fallacy around what ready means. So you can enter every single checklist of starting your business when it comes to like the actual operational point of view, but you're never going to truly feel ready. So honing in on your why you do what you do can be an important piece, so that becomes your North Star. This is an activity that we do with every single one of our clients. It's something that Jay and I return to often, is making sure that every single thing that you do aligns with that why, so that you can feel that everything that you do has an intention and purpose, even when you do get those eventual no's.
There was another one in the chat, and it was from Dale. It says, April, can you give an overview of mindfulness as a practice philosophy?
Sure. So present day mindfulness was developed thanks to John Kabat-Zinn, who is a researcher, and he took contemplative practices, most of them based in Buddhism, and secularized them for those of us in mostly westernized societies, looking at how do we approach life mindfully, and what does that mean? So typically the definition of mindfulness is living life in a way that is non-judgmental, with some form of an awareness practice that also includes compassion. So when we apply that as a lens through which we operate in the world, that is what helps develop self-awareness. Meditation and mindfulness are not the same thing. Meditation can help someone become more mindful. I truly believe, again, from a trauma-informed lens, that meditation is not always appropriate, depending on somebody's state and what they might be going through. And then I also do believe that having some form of formal meditation instruction and or a teacher or a coach can be very important for those people who are looking to go deeper in their meditation and mindfulness practice. Simply because, and that's also part of the reason why we started Yeg Hustle, is that you can only do so much through a computer or with an app because it's not individualized. It doesn't actually answer to your specific needs as a human being. So mindfulness as a practice, what does it look like? It can look like many different things. So there's many components to being mindfulness or to being mindful. So the example I like to give is after I returned back from California, one of the most highly researched mindfulness practices is a gratitude practice. So I started a daily gratitude journal. And if you go to my Instagram, I kept the same Instagram, and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, that's what I started it for. And I kept a daily gratitude practice on my Instagram for 3 years straight. And I think in all 3 years, I only missed about 10 days. And it really showed me the importance of being grateful for literally everything that has been handed to me in my life, including the shitty stuff. Because truly it's within the suffering when we learn the most. So being able to apply mindfulness to every piece of our life gives us the ability to open our eyes, see things from different perspectives, because we choose to not be judgmental. When we catch ourselves in those moments of being judgmental, one of the things I like to include in an example of this is saying that you had a bad day. We have a rule in my family that bad days don't exist. There's the days that feel all right, and then there's the days that you learn from. And so how can it be a bad day if it's a learning opportunity? And so that's the piece where mindfulness can come in. It's important to note that mindfulness is also not eternal optimism or positivity. Mindfulness has the dark and the light, and it brings both into greater focus. And it truly is a way to walk through life. It's not something that you just sit down and meditate and then it goes away when you go towards something else. It's something that you adopt and utilize hopefully every moment, because it is truly about present moment awareness.
Damien had a comment on the chat. He said that no, not sorry. I wanted to go to first one is he thinks control can still be a valid reason for starting a business, because for him, this part of it is the ability to avoid how he felt he was treated by an employer.
Yeah, and that's I know Damien. Hi, Damien. And that's a valid case. I'm just saying that sometimes there can be this guise when you speak to entrepreneurs around, like, why did you start the business? Because I want control. From a mindfulness place, that is just a question to sit with. Because in this life, what do you truly have control over? Very, very little. We have control over how we respond to the environment around us. And that's pretty much it. So yes, you might have an employer where you don't have control over how the employer treats you, but you also, in the inverse, as an entrepreneur, don't have much control over how clients or employees respond to you, other than maybe having the power to let them go. Right. So it's just an interesting point of reflection. And you might come full circle back to the same comment that Damien said of just like, well, part of why I chose to start my business was just because of this. And that's perfectly valid. It's just knowing that that's your truth.
Okay. And Olivia had a second question. You could unmute if you want to, Olivia.
All right, thanks.
So do you want to just read your question?
Yeah, sure. So basically my second question is, what do you think is the best way to deal with failures while starting a business? Because I know that, especially with COVID, there's a really high chance that you will, that businesses might not make it during this time, that you're losing money, you're losing clients. So how would a person deal with that?
Do you want me to go start, April?
Yeah.
Well, losing clients is just it's always going to be a part of business. But the thing that you have to treat these opportunities as learning experiences on what did we do to lose that client, and what can we do better to mitigate preventing future losses of clients. So failures are actually very important in business if you look at them the right way and you don't let them consume you and just say, I'm going down, but you look at them as a learning experience to find out what could have been done better, what could have been changed to kind of strengthen your business as you continue to grow, because losing clients will always be part of the business. But if you keep, learning from those failures, and failing early is these are great things. My first business was a giant failure, and I call that my MBA, because I learned all the things that we did wrong, all the things we could have done better, and kind of repivoted who I want to be in business from that first experience, because it wasn't quite the fit. It wasn't a business that fit who I was. It's from that perspective, it's just these are fantastic learning opportunities while you're building your business to hone in exactly what your value proposition is, so you can see success in the business that you choose, or in the path that you're going down. In terms of losing money, it's sometimes that is something that happens. So it's just making sure that you're paying attention to the finances of your business. When you're starting out on your own, just being comfortable having to wear all the hats, and dig in and face the realities of looking at numbers if they don't look good, and making changes sooner rather than later to help kind of adapt those things. So, losing money is always a potential when you're in business. So it's acknowledging that and just not turning your back from your numbers, keeping an eye on it, so you can kind of see how that goes. I know for me, when things were tough, the last thing I wanted to look was at our P&L, but once I face that head on, it really opened up my eyes as to, okay, where are the issues? What do we need to do internally to kind of help fix things? And once again, admitting weakness and forcing myself to look at those things to fix those things. And your business down the road is stronger for it. So things like going through COVID right now, there's tremendous opportunities during COVID. Yes, there's a lot of negativity out there, but it's also a tremendous opportunity as well. So it's looking at what opportunities also present itself, that can maybe not get yourself ahead today, but set yourself up to get ahead 2-3 years from now. Because the one thing that we constantly preach is the patience around building a business. Yes, it's about trying to set yourself up financially, but you can't be focusing on that short-term win. It's all about trying to build the long-term win, and patience and process go a long way, and enjoying the process go a long way to achieving that goal, which will set you up far beyond what your probably initial expectations were. So, yeah. April?
And I would say the three things that come to mind for me when it comes to failure is impermanence, grief, and helpers. So number one, failure is a great lesson in impermanence, that every single thing in this life is temporary, including us. Every single thing. Every dollar that you make is also temporary, because it comes in and it goes out. And so when we can lean into and radically accept the fact that nothing lasts forever, that can actually be a relief. For some people, that drives their fear. And if you're making decisions out of fear, that's a question that you need to ask yourself, because nothing's going to be successful if you're asking questions out of fear, versus leaning into being like, okay, I want to start this social media business and it might fail. What does that look like? Right? So that's number one. Number two, grief. So the feelings that we get from failure are directly related to grief, because it's loss. It's loss of some form. We tend to think of grief only as when like a loved one dies, but grief can be associated with any type of loss. And so we might feel like we have some form of loss within our business, and we get these emotions. And number one, we have to pay attention to how our emotions actually feel and what it feels like in the body. So when I'm working with someone around failure and I ask them, how does that feel? Most often people can't actually tell me how it feels. They'll give me some kind of excuse. They'll give me a story. And I always have to bring them back to like, how does it feel in the body to experience this failure? And where is it coming from? Also, in that pathway of grief, there will be some message that's coming to you that's most often from the past, whether it's a parent where you are afraid of failure because you're worried about what other people think about your failure. So when you can put that aside about what other people think of you and only just hone in on like, it's okay if I fail. And actually, just like Jay said, it's actually probably a good thing if you have some mini failures as setting up your business. It's going to make your business better in the long run, right? The third thing, helpers. So one of the things that we do with our clients is that we establish a boat. So if you can think of yourself in a boat, the business is your boat and you are steering the ship. You're the captain. You can try and sail it alone. That's kind of the sexy version of entrepreneurship. I did this all by myself. We know that that's not true. Entrepreneurship is not a solo endeavor. And so you need to establish who needs to be in your boat to help you, who already exists in your boat. Those are your like ride or die, row or die, right? They are there for you no matter what. And that's whether it's like your mom, your dad, your best friend, or people who are already involved in your business. Then you need to establish who's on the shore that you need to pick up. Who are your helpers? So this is, again, something that we've worked on with Jay, that since working together, he's hired and fired more people probably in the last 2.5 years than he did before that, because he realized that there are things that he A, doesn't want to do, or B, is shitty at. So instead of like constantly grinding that out, let's just outsource it. Did that cost him more money in the long run? Or initially? Yes. But in the long run, he saved. And he can tell you where it's like an itemized list of where he saved money because he figured out who needed to be in his boat. So impermanence, recognizing the grief that happens in failure, regardless of the size of failure. Nobody gets to determine what you're allowed to grieve also. And then figuring out what helpers you need. You can do that as you're setting up your business. And then that would be something that I would recommend revisiting monthly as your business grows and develops.
Thank you. That's an awesome answer.
Katie, you had a question? You want to go next?
Yes, thank you, Cecile. And I really appreciate this session today since I've been growing with Maji Center. I've been learning a lot since fall 2019. So yeah, I'm just wondering, because I have been giving free tutorials with my peers, and most of the time I hear them depressed or something, like they're stressed out with their academics. And I'm just wondering if you guys, like you yourself, Jay and April, would you recommend having young students, to be exposed in entrepreneurship so that they would be having an idea, like as in general, like would you recommend entrepreneurship to be exposed at an early stage of their semester, or are you cautious about how entrepreneurship is like a very heavy responsibility or something? So what are your thoughts about that?
I think responsibility is highly individualized. What might feel as a heavy burden to one person is not to the other. And when you're trying to decide that for a group of people, that can be difficult. What I would recommend is breaking down the parts of entrepreneurship into its component pieces. And what are the skill sets that are typically displayed by successful entrepreneurs? And when you break down the skill sets, that's what your curriculum should be based on. If you're, like if you had Entrepreneurship 101, what are the skill sets? What are the attributes? What are the characteristics? These are all things that we can learn, that then you could break that down to students. And if you broke them up and taught them in its component pieces, and at the end of the day, like let's say you taught this for a semester, and then at the last day of the semester, you said, okay, you've all graduated from Entrepreneurship 101. And they'd be like, oh, that's what we were learning. So I think we need to realize that roles and responsibilities are actually a collection of certain characteristics, traits, skills that are all teachable. And I don't think that there's necessarily again, there's no such thing as being fully ready. There's not a perfect time. So, and people will either fall in line with that, where they will be like, oh, this is something that feels right for me, or it will be uncomfortable and they'll move on to something else. That again comes down to self-awareness of recognizing that this is something that I want to do. Jay?
Well, that question was so geared for you because it involved education. So yeah, like for me, all I can talk about is kind of how everything related to or my journey and path. And I always knew from a young age I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and then from there reversed engineered about, well, what do I need to know, or how much do I need to know, or what, or just try to get a little bit of information in different areas so I can know just enough so that I could start a business and kind of know how to talk legal, or know how to incorporate my own company, or know how to look at a balance sheet and an income statement. And that's something to pump Nate's tires. That's where I went to get and learn all those tools so I could learn a little bit of business law, marketing, accounting, because I was already an entrepreneur. I already had the mindset to be an entrepreneur. Now I just wanted to kind of get the information I needed. So when I launched a business, I wasn't an expert in anything. I just knew enough to get by in all the areas so I could get off the ground. So yeah, like that would be kind of my personal feedback on kind of my journey to becoming an entrepreneur. And then, yeah, April obviously providing the proper educational response.
And Z has a question on the chat. I don't know if you can see it, but any tips on how to transition from working a corporate job to entrepreneurship? Biggest struggle has been creating a routine set by themselves rather than a boss delegating work to them. It's been interesting having the freedom to create your own schedule, but it's also been their biggest challenge when it comes to prioritizing tasks, feeling overwhelming with something that they're experiencing almost every day.
Go for it, Jay, because you walk this talk all the time.
Yeah, well, I came from, so my background is I was a commercial banker at ATB Financial. So I did the corporate gig. But once again, it was part of my learnings. I went into commercial banking because I thought it was important to learn how to get money for business. And, real estate. So learned free real estate financing. And then when the Oodle Noodle opportunity came to be while I was still at ATB, I specialized for almost 24 months on franchise financing so I could learn about what other brands are doing and how to finance a franchise store. So I came from that corporate world while kind of slowly kind of building Oodle Noodle up and the Nation Network up so that I could retire from the bank and pursue a full-time career in entrepreneurship. So yeah, the schedule for me, because I'm not the most organized person. It took me a while to admit that, but that's true. And, this is more reason to work with someone like April, because she's listened to everything I have to do. And now we've created a schedule for me to operate so I could be my best self and have the focus I need to continue doing what I'm doing and isolating everything down to like, what is it I should actually be doing and what shouldn't I be doing? So things for me, especially starting out, is, you need time to work and think strategy, give yourself time to work on business development and all that stuff. And it's just creating a schedule of time of like, okay, well, what parts of my day do I need to be focusing on these things? And, also setting time aside to like focus on the bad things. So you can stare at those and sit on those and think of those. So yeah, for me, it's, the end result of my initial meeting there with April was I dumped a bunch of stuff because I didn't have a schedule. It was just I was just carrying everything in my head from meeting to meeting to meeting to phone call to phone call to phone call. And I wasn't being as productive or as focused or as present as I should be and all that stuff. So it was dissecting kind of everything I do and then focus where I'm providing value for the company and where I need to be in operations, and then building a schedule around that. So what we've established for myself, is we call it my power hour. So I start my day around 6:37 in the morning. And then for the next 3 hours, that's my time to work on all the things I'm carrying around in my head. And that could be business related, personal related, whatever, but it gives me that unencumbered time to work on all those things. And it's a different flavor every day. And then the rest of the day, I'm present in all the conversations. So I go to the office, I sit down with the team. When they have questions for me, I'm present, I'm focused, I can provide value and everything, just creating a more efficient ecosystem for me, for my personal ecosystem for me to operate in. So yeah, like schedule, it's unique to everyone. So that's kind of the wheelhouse that we, through conversation and just kind of sharing everything, we've come up with that's unlocked and made me better and more efficient with my day.
It's and so part of how we got there was identifying what Jay needed to get done and why, and prioritizing those things, and then also doing a deep dive. Something that he and I have just done recently is writing down every single thing that you do every day for like 2 or 3 weeks, and deciding can any of that be outsourced, and then also are there things that you do more of, and then are there times during the day when you're more productive. Paying attention to your natural body rhythms and recognizing, are you more productive during the morning, which most of us are. So that's why we created his power hour in the morning, which started as an hour. And that's a joke for those of us old Jaegers from the Purple Onion, where, you know, you get an hour to get stuff done, and it's now expanded to 3 hours. And I really like to use that as an example, because if Jay, who runs 4 companies, can take 3 hours a day to take care of his most important things, then anybody can really get that done. There's another piece of it that comes down to discipline. People think that willpower is something that you can just kind of create more of, and it's actually a finite resource. And so you have to be very protective of your willpower and how and where you're using your discipline. And especially if you're used to kind of answering to a boss, you have to become that boss, and you have to become accountable to yourself. And that alone can be a difficult practice if someone is naturally not that disciplined in their own practices for themselves.
Okay, we have another one in the chat from Karen. Do you see value in reading, suggesting any literature, or you only focus on conversations with so-called mentor during your sessions?
Yeah, so I think that wisdom exists everywhere. And so I have a stack of books. I consistently read. I also listen to podcasts. I watch YouTube videos. I also have my own mentors as well. So I think that it's important to recognize that learning is constant. You can never know everything. There's also a deep teaching in that there's freedom in not knowing. So also being willing to not know things, and also being okay with that, because that can also sometimes be difficult for those of us A-typers that, again, try and seek control through information. Control of information is a whole deep dive, especially if you withhold it from others. But when it comes to how you acquire your own information, there's definitely, I have a list of books and resources that I refer to people depending on what they need in the moment.
Oh, I guess for me personally, I'm a horrific reader. I'll admit that, but I do read for sure. I wish I could read a book a month, but that's not my forte. I'm probably a 4 to 5 book a year guy. But then I consume information differently though. I'm very visual and very audio, so lots of podcasts for me. Because yeah, exactly. It's we're always learning, and there's always things through listening that can kind of open you up to look at your business a little bit different, or to think about a certain thing a little bit different. So always open to learn. And then yeah, also comfortable. And this is something initially I thought it was a weakness, not being good at certain things. I always thought that was a weakness, but the minute that you're willing to admit it and address it with partnership or growing your team or anything like that, you realize that it's okay. And basically, eventually, you start a business, you're swimming in every lane, and as you can kind of build and unlock resources, you're narrowing it down to less lanes you're swimming until then you're in your lane. And then once you get into your lane, that's when you can be and provide the most value for your business. And also, there's more value that there's just whole like mental benefits to doing all that, because it's reducing the opportunities for overwhelm. So always be learning.
Okay, so Justin asks, are there any great resources that you can share to get deeper into this topic? Book, blog, YouTube, podcast?
So we have a podcast. We're just going to plug ourselves. We have a podcast. So it's on all the popular platforms, Yeg Hustle. So you can start there. And then also, I think it's important to audit who you allow. And I just did a post on this on our Instagram as well, who you allow to influence you. So, and that's regardless of like what you're reading, what you're scrolling on social media. It's something that I audit all the time, because I want to be cautious of what I'm allowing in to influence my system. So some of the people that we are influenced by, so Simon Sinek, he is kind of famous around the why. So knowing your why and why that's important. Obviously Gary Vaynerchuk, and just so you know, his style in the media is not necessarily who he is in person, and I can attest to that. But he knows his shit. Let's be real. Claude Silver, so that's his chief heart officer, and she talks all about leading from the heart and treating humans like human. That's the human in human resources. So leadership from the heart. Myself, yes, Gary Vee is coming to Edmonton. So my friends at Trickstar are bringing him. So I'll see you guys there when he finally comes. Also for me, from a mindfulness place, some of my greatest teachers have been, so Chris and Megan, unfortunately, they don't have anything public, but I learn from them weekly. Just finding teachers that you really resonate with. And trying different things. I mean, attend different, listen to different podcasts and attend different workshops. Like most of you probably signed up to this not knowing what you were going to be listening to. And hopefully you're leaving thinking that being more mindful in your business is something to achieve. And then even just searching up like mindfulness teachers or mindfulness in general and finding people to listen to. So Jay?
Yeah, like there's so many great thought leaders and business leaders to follow. It all, and yes, these, like, those people are who resonate with me, but everyone's going to have kind of a different voice that resonates with them. But it's just being open and actively kind of pursuing that and listening to different voices through podcasts or reading books, whatever kind of your content consumption comfort levels are. But yeah, it's those who that's who talks to us. That's who opens up my mind and allows me to look at things a little bit differently, or triggers me in a good way to look at things differently, or to think about new things to implement. And then for you, it's just, like, start with them if you like, by all means, listen to us. Sure, that's great. We have a lot of fun doing our podcast, but just be open and search around, because it could be someone completely different that speaks to you because they're speaking from its tone, voice, or they come from an industry that resonates with you. So, but be open to pursuing it for sure.
Is there any other questions? Wow, we're finishing up just on time. So I just want to take this moment to thank April and Jay for sharing your time and your knowledge and your stories with us today. We really, really, really appreciate it. For anybody who's interested, please do check out the rest of Edmonton's Startup Week events for this week, and know that Launch Party is free this year. As well, I wanted to let our students know that our pitch competition deadline is coming up November 15th. We're giving away $8,000. And we have a session on October 29th on personal branding that you're not going to want to miss. So thanks again, Jay and April, and everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon and a tremendous week. And maybe try and find one thing to be thankful for every day.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.